Hey, what's up, guys? Well, freedom kind of took a blow yesterday with the Supreme Court's ruling on the Obamacare Act, or whatever the hell you want to call it. Doesn't really matter. A lot of people are saying, the enemies of the law are saying that, this is basically something that will motivate those that are against the law to vote for Romney, which I think is a true statement. But what I want to talk about today, even though this is, time to talk about Obamacare, I think most people are talking about Obamacare, and I think that the points have been made. I think that it is unconstitutional. The mandate that a person must, that the government requires us, the individual, to enter into a private relationship with a third party is patently against our constitutional rights. That being said, I understand the comment that people are making that say, well, look, you dummy, people are just going to go to the emergency room anyway, and if they're going to go to the emergency room anyway, you're going to pay that in taxes. And again, this is a true statement. This is completely true. But there's already money in the government for that. Medicaid, Medicaid, and other forms. Different states have different stuff. So if that already exists and those people are already getting, whatever handouts from that, why do we need another larger system to deal with that? Well, many will point and say, well, it's because people can't get insurance, or that they have a pre-existing condition, or insurance itself is too expensive. And so what we're going to talk about is the McCarran-Ferguson Act. And I'm going to just briefly talk about it because it's kind of got a lot of gobbledygook, and its intention was that it would allow insurers to be exempt from a lot of federal issues, particularly, and I'm going to read this off of the National Conference of State Legislatures, which is an org. I'll put the link in the bottom. It's basically a discussion in allowing the purchase of health insurance from out-of-state issuers. And it says, insurance firms in each state are protected from interstate competition by the federal McCarran-Ferguson Act, which was enacted in 1945, which grants states the right to regulate health plans within their borders. Large employers who self-insure are exempt, so people that work at big companies like myself, we get cheap insurance or cheaper insurance because a single insurer can provide insurance to the whole pool of people with one set of governance, meaning they can, what the insurer provides to the employees is uniform across the board instead of having 50 different options for the 50 different states, or, whatever. A growing number of state legislators... Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one of the most important parts. Thus, there is a patchwork of 50 different sets of state regulations, and the cost for an insurer licensed in one of those states to enter another state market is often high. A growing number of state legislators are interested in whether some states allow or facilitate the purchase of health insurance across state boundaries or from out-of-state regulated companies. So I've been having an ongoing discussion with people at work, and they talk of, people who have pre-existing conditions, parents, relatives who are sick. And look, compassion is a great thing to have. You have to have it as an individual. But when we talk about compassion at the federal level, we usually get into a lot of trouble because we set up these things, these plans, these laws, these programs that aim to be compassionate towards a group or a disenfranchised few. The problem is that when your goal is compassion, you're oftentimes getting taken advantage of. And that's what a lot of these systems and plans and welfare and everything like that is all about these days. It's a ton of people taking advantage. Hey, our tax system is about taking advantage. 50% of the people don't pay any taxes, and some 30% lower of that 50% pie chunk actually get incentivized to not work. Or, as some have said, oh, I made $14,000 last year, now I'm making $20,000, I get less back in an incentive. I'm not talking about a return, I'm talking about additional money they did not earn, or was not part of the return. And they go, well, why am I working harder? I'd rather go back to $14,000. Anyway, when we govern with compassion at the federal level, we get into trouble because our taxes go down the drain because we start picking out groups of people that we think we need to help versus getting out of the way, returning the money, and allowing competition to be competitive and have companies fight for sales and people. Everything that needs to happen in a truly capitalist society. This is an example of why insurance is so expensive. By having a company have a ton of money to enter into a new state to add competition, you're preventing capitalism from working. You're preventing other insurance companies from coming in and forcing other insurance companies that are already in the state to lower their prices to be competitive. Let's talk about, okay, so let's say this McCain-Ferguson Act were to disappear overnight. What would you see? You would see tons of companies start to lower their rates. And the reason was because you could hop on the internet at any time you wanted and go to any insurance company and you could get a bid or a quote for insurance in that area, in the state you're in. And there will be some states and some companies that will be uniquely better suited to handle your particular issues or whatever you have. That's good for us, the purchaser, the freedom of the individual to buy what they want. Giving the money or tax money to the government to create this lofty Obamacare thing to try and solve a perceived problem that's caused by the federal government is horrible. So we're basically saying, Obama, here, I want you to take our money and solve the problem we have. The problem we have is the government, the McCain-Ferguson Act, things like this that prevent capitalism from being capitalism. We should not try and touch the butterfly wings and make them better. We should let the butterfly fly free. Don't touch it. So, okay, I said pre-existing conditions. What does that mean? What is that? How would the reversal of the McCarran-Ferguson Act, how would that help the people that have pre-existing conditions? Well, okay, let's take a state, for example. California is probably a bad example, but let's take a smaller state. Let's say Iowa. Iowa, right, the state, and its populace, there's only a couple companies in there, and they're all fighting for those people to give them money to insure them, right? And what happens with insurance? You pay money into a pool, and hopefully your goal is that you've charged those people enough money that the claims you're paying out don't deplete that pool. You make a profit, people get paid, and costs get covered, right? That's the idea. Well, if you were to say, take the size of Iowa, right? There's very little pool there that all those little individual companies can get at, the little pieces of pie they need to make money. So what do? They cut costs, and the best way of cutting costs is reducing the amount of claims. People with pre-existing conditions put in a lot of claims, don't they? Yes, of course. This makes sense. This is all capitalism, right? Actually, not capitalism. This is just supply and demand, pretty much. So, or not supply and demand. Kind of like Insurance 101. I don't know what I'm talking about now. I'm rambling. Anyway, so let's say you take the pool of Iowa and you increase it to the whole freaking country, all 50 states, and you say, it's go time. What happens? Well, because you've just increased the pool so dramatically, and you allow companies, large companies would be a prime example of being able to do this. Large companies will now have a pool, and they will have efficiencies and ways of funding care for individuals with pre-existing conditions. So what am I saying? I'm saying that by increasing the pool and allowing more money to go into the coffers of the insurance companies, they can take in more higher risk individuals. This is just caused by that widening of the pool and the amount of people that are paying into it. So the best thing you can do for people with pre-existing conditions is by removing anything that gets in the way of capitalism being capitalism. So, gosh, that was a little tirade there. So, Obamacare didn't get turned down, right? Well, it's going to go into effect, I think, 2014, something like that. And guess what? There are parts of Obamacare that are basically flying in the face of the McCarran-Ferguson Act. They're setting up these kind of like interstate hubs, or medical hubs, I think they're called. And those medical hubs is basically doing what I'm talking about, but it's doing it through the inefficiencies of the government. So here's the concern. Government sets up McCarran-Ferguson Act. It's a bad thing. We get screwed as the consumer. still in place. Now you've got Obamacare is coming into place. And to make Obamacare work, you're going to have to chop off part of the McCarran-Ferguson Act that would remove the competition. So basically, they're going to drop McCarran-Ferguson. This is all tactics, political tactics right now. They're going to drop McCarran-Ferguson for favor of Obamacare. And what's going to happen is when Obamacare goes into effect, because of the competition being increased by the removal of the McCarran-Ferguson Act, people will think, hot damn, look what Obamacare did. And I bet you the numbers will go up eventually. But it's not because Obamacare solved any problems. It's because they got the competition going again, which is what we need. Anyway, go look at my previous video I did on Willard B. Filburn. That discusses more about the individual mandate portion of Obamacare. Some of you may enjoy it. It's heavy law stuff, so I don't know. Anyway, take it easy, guys.